Today, I'm so excited to speak about one of my absolute favorite topics, and I want to find out who here listening are my chocolate lovers. If you are a chocolate lover, if you have a sweet tooth, then I absolutely have the show for you today. Welcome to Holistic Hope, the podcast show that uncovers the secrets to health that you've been searching for. I'm your host, Amanda Cuda. Welcome to the Holistic Hope podcast. I am here today speaking with a beautiful lady who I had the pleasure of having a virtual tour with back in 2020. So it's been a few years. And I have Ancel Mitchell with me today, who is on a chocolate farm in Costa Rica. Welcome, Ancel.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so grateful to have you. It was back during the pandemic where couldn't really do much, couldn't really travel anywhere, and I was finding all these virtual tours online, and I came across Ansel's. Was it from a tree to bar? I think was the class. Is that
Mhm.
is that the title of the
Mhm.
class? And you showed us everything from cacao, where it comes from, to how to process it. And I fell in love. And as soon as I was, creating this podcast, I'm like, I am going to have Ansel on this podcast to talk about my favorite topic. So, Ansel, tell us, how did you make your way to a cacao farm in Costa Rica?
I'm originally from Scotland and I came to Costa Rica 17 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm a teacher by trade, so I came here to work in a school and very quickly fell in love with cacao and chocolate and gradually moved from education of children to working with cacao and teaching adults.
Oh, I love that. So, what was your first love of cacao?
I wasn't that keen on chocolate when I was a child. I
Wow.
much preferred salty things. And instead of chocolate Easter eggs, I would ask for dates and fruit. So I was never really into chocolate. But when I moved here, I was working as a kindergarten teacher in actually the opposite corner of Costa Rica from where I am now. And on the Pacific side of Costa Rica, half the year wet, half the year dry. And I was living in this beautiful little shack in this really lovely community as the kindergarten teacher. And outside of my door, surrounding my shack, were these trees that were just really special. I'm from Scotland and there's a lot of wind in Scotland. And so most of the trees are bent over like this from the wind. And these trees around my shack were all bent over too. And I thought, oh my God, they're the same trees. But over there's half the year wet, half the year dry. So the cacao there's no cacao on the trees for half of the year. So I had no idea what they were. So I fell in love with the trees. And then I was working in the morning as a kindergarten teacher and I was working in the afternoon in a cafe and we started making chocolate drinks. And they're not the typical, it was a vegan community. So it wasn't the typical hot chocolate. It was these cold shots of thick chocolate with superfoods. And I loved them. I loved something less sweet. And it was wonderful. And then I realized that those were chocolate trees or cacao trees. And I started fermenting and made so many mistakes, rotted so many beans. And then moved to this side and met my husband who has a cacao farm. And so it just came together.
Wow.
And now we make about just over a ton of chocolate a year.
Wow. That's a decent amount of chocolate.
Yes, a decent amount. That's a lot of work.
It is, yes. Now, people are probably really confused. Why are we talking about chocolate? Because this is a holistic podcast, right? When I started my health coaching course in 2013, and people were talking about cacao, and I had never heard of what cacao was before then. And all I started to really know was that it was a really fun word to say. We would be like, cacao, cacao. I don't know if you guys do that there, or that was just a weird Australian thing. Do you do that there?
Yeah. We
Okay.
say ciao ciao cacao when we're parting.
Oh, I love that. And so I started learning that chocolate can be really healthy and really good for you. And so I really want to just break this down for our audience on why is it that, I lost a whole bunch of weight at the start of my journey too. And I was eating so much homemade cacao. When I study, I have this thing where I just need to feed my mouth. And so I would be eating lots of nuts and lots of like 3 ingredient homemade cacao. And the weight just kept coming off me, and it was amazing. And so I really want to talk to people about the difference, or talk to you about the difference between why people should stop buying chocolate bars from the supermarket. That's probably a good place to start. And then they might also be a confusion of, I don't want people to go out to the supermarket where you can buy cacao, but I don't want them to go and buy cocoa and get that mixed up, because there is definitely a difference between the two. So, what is the difference between cacao and cocoa?
That's a good question. And you'll get different answers from different chocolate makers.
Hmm.
But essentially, cacao, this is a cacao tree behind me right here. This beautiful being right here. And so in English, we have one word, cacao, for everything, for the tree all the way through to the bar. I think the difference is really confusing because chocolate, the word chocolate means bitter water. And this, I have a little cup of chocolate with me to drink with you all. This is one of my favorite little cups.
That's so
It's a
cute.
little friendly cacao being. And so in this cup, I don't know that you can, maybe I'll pour it into this. This is bitter water. This is chocolate. And so this really beautiful, thick, brown stuff is cacao and water and actually corn, which is much more traditional. And then spices. This is chocolate,
Mhm.
if you're being super traditional about it.
Right.
But because we're so used to chocolate bars
Mhm.
and candy, then yeah, there's a lot of confusion. This is a cacao pod. This is one I picked earlier. And these are cacao beans. and this is a cacao tree, and this is a drink of cacao. And so, it's one word for many, many, many different things. And so it can get really confusing.
Mhm.
Cocoa is normally refers to cacao that has been pressed. So from this stage, we would press out the fat that's in here, which is
Okay.
a really healthy fat, but we'd press out the fat.
Mhm.
And then that's what's normally sold as cocoa powder.
Okay. And the kind of the cocoa powder, and so I really like that you did mention that it's bitter water as the definition, because a lot
Yeah.
of people don't realize that cacao in its natural form is quite bitter. And so my understanding of when I look at cocoa in the supermarket is they've taken the powder, they've mixed it with a whole bunch of sweeteners and preservatives and all the other things, which I guess loses its integrity of the real medicinal properties of the cacao powder or the cacao bean. And now you've got me confused on what to call it.
Yeah. So cacao has gone through, cacao and people have a 10,000-year-old relationship. We go back a long way. Cacao tree is a really old tree. She's 10 million years old. And so for me, she's the ultimate comfort food. She's been through everything. She's been through many ice ages. This land that I'm on, Costa Rica and Panama came up out of the ocean 3.5 million years ago when cacao was 6 million years old. More than 6 million years old already. And so she's been through a lot. She's been through little ice ages. People have been here. The latest findings is 18,000 years. And so cacao has seen and done everything. So she's extremely old and extremely wise. And she's gathered some wisdom, but she's also gathered a lot of medicine to protect herself too. And so chocolate, as we know it now, and cocoa, as we know it now, are really modern. They're only been around in the last 160, 170 years. Chocolate bars were invented by Mr. Lindt of Lindt Chocolate in Switzerland by accident. It was a it was a mistake. Yeah, they're recent. In the whole history of people in cacao, chocolate bars are very recent. And now we're coming through. We're going into the next stage with people drinking or using nibs and drinking cacao tea, or cacao as a coffee substitute, or cacao herself.
Mm-hmm.
Cocoa powder, really, you could say that it was traditional. But I'm going to say a little bit about how the relationship got built, because as a tree to bar farm, or as anybody that's making chocolate, retraces the history of people in cacao.
Mm-hmm.
So this, I don't have one with a hole in it. So this is the fruit. This takes 6 months to develop from the flower.
Wow.
And it's really heavy and it doesn't fall by itself. And so somebody has to make a hole and spread the seeds. So normally it's a squirrel or a monkey or a parrot. But they don't eat all the seeds because, as you said earlier, there's something in cacao that helps us lose weight.
Mm.
And what that is there's a chemical in there that's for diversity purposes. The cacao wants a few seeds spread from many pods, because maybe there's something wrong with one pod.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has a chemical all the way through that makes whoever is eating it feel full, feel satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a diversification tool. And so what we have is we have a hole up here, and then we have a lot of really sweet fruit in here with the cacao seeds inside the fruit. And we have yeast in the air here for sure. So we have an alcoholic fermentation that happens in here. So cacao beans are the fermented bean of the cacao. The fermentation is really important for developing flavor and also for changing the qualities. Lowers the bitterness and the astringency and develops those beautiful chocolate flavors that we really like. And so people were using the cacao to make alcohol for the longest time, and we can still do that too.
Oh, I've never heard of it as alcohol.
Yeah, it's pretty good alcohol. If you're visiting South America, it's much easier to buy alcohol or candy
Mm-hmm.
or sorbet or ice cream made from the fruit. The fruit's delicious.
Right.
It has more sugar than a banana or mango,
Mm-hmm.
and it's citrusy. It's really delicious. So people were using the alcohol and throwing away the seeds. The seeds are the only part we use now. But then they realized that this is not going to sound great for a vegan, but one of their favorite animals to eat loved the cacao seeds. And so they thought maybe we can try eating the seeds, and they roasted them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you roast the cacao bean, you release all of the fat in it. So inside every bean, 55% of the weight of the bean is cacao butter, it's cacao fat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good fat for our bodies. It's saturated, but it's a really nice fat for us. And here in the tropics, there's no winter. And so it was very hard for people to find fat. So the cacao bean became really important for its fat content. But it's a lot of work to take the fat out. And so eventually they were already cooking it in water. They just started drinking the water, and that is chocolate. That bitter water is chocolate. There was no sugar in the Americas before the Europeans came.
Oh.
And so the diet was really, really pretty healthy back then.
Yeah.
Chocolate was taken with salt and chili and corn normally.
Okay, you're like blowing my mind because I don't remember these conversations back 4 years ago about the corn. I assume you probably
No.
mentioned it back then, maybe. And
No,
no?
that was definitely more a chocolate making tour than a cacao tour.
Oh, was it? Okay. Because, yeah, you did show us how to make chocolate that day. So I want to really talk about, the medicinal benefits and how you mentioned that, how it does make you full. Because prior to having and being introduced to more pure form of cacao, when I would buy the candy bars and I would say I was a Cadbury girl. That was the brand I would buy, and I could easily smash down a whole bar by myself in one sitting. And I really was such an emotional eater as well back then, so I could do that really easily. And then when I started making the cacao, and like I said, I was eating it when I was studying, but even though I was eating it, I was only eating, I would mold it into I had this mold that has like little heart shapes, like heart shapes in it. So I would, have like 3 or 4 heart shapes kind of thing. Or even, I don't even know if I even got to 4. But I really love that it does make you so full. So I know when I give cacao to friends and they come over and I'm like, have you had like raw, like, homemade chocolate before? And they still don't, a lot of people still don't know about it. And so it's
Mhm.
one of my favorite things to share and have people experience. And everybody always has this perception in their head that they need to eat a lot to feel satisfied. And
Yeah,
they're always, always surprised that they feel so satisfied after like 1 or 2 pieces.
that is a wonderful statement. So cacao is extremely healthy and a wonderful health food if we have dark chocolate.
Hmm.
Or if we have, yeah, with the darker, the higher percentage, the less. So the percentage of chocolate makers that we never ever mention is sugar. So a
Hmm.
70% chocolate bar is 30% sugar, which is a lot of sugar. To give you another way of saying that, a white chocolate, which most people will say, oh, far too much sugar, that's far too sweet, is 33% sugar.
Oh.
So white chocolate is only 3% sugar, more sugar than a 70% dark chocolate.
Hmm.
Sugar is an interesting topic. 72% is 28% sugar, 72% cacao. That's the tipping point. So 72% and above, any negatives from the sugar are outweighed by benefits from the cacao. And so 72% and higher is considered a health food.
Okay.
Milk chocolate, dairy milk chocolate, dairy milk has a protein in it that coats the cacao, and our bodies can't absorb any of the benefits through that coating. Vegan milk is okay, it doesn't have the same protein.
Right.
But that's why when you're hitting that Cadbury's dairy milk or
Hmm.
any milk chocolate, you eat and eat and eat and not even notice that you're eating it. You're never satisfied
Yeah.
because that protein isn't allowing that chemical that gives you the feeling of satisfaction to come through.
That makes more sense. And then plus all the, the emotions that the sugar takes us on as well,
Yeah,
all the ups and downs. So you're not really
yeah.
feeling that. So you're not getting the benefits of the cacao plus all the processed sugar that's in it as well. That
Mhm.
makes heaps more sense why I was never feeling satisfied. On the subject of sugar, when you do make your cacao there, what kind of sugars are you using?
We use cane because Costa Rica exports cane sugar, and that's what we have. We use an organic raw cane that we get directly from the farm.
Mhm.
So we know the farmers, we know their process. It's really clean, it's really beautiful. So, and I like the sugar that we have. Actually, there is, if I move you around here, that thing that looks like grass, that's sugar cane right there. That is sugar cane. Ah, there we
Yeah.
go. That's sugar cane. And so,
I can say I grew up from sugarcane farmland in Australia.
oh, right.
So
Okay. Oh, you're very familiar.
I'm extremely, it would be very sad if I was very unfamiliar, but for our audience, there's probably a lot of people that haven't seen what it looks like. But yes.
So we use sugarcane. The other alternative, another popular alternative now is coconut sugar.
Mhm.
And there are plenty of coconuts here. However, with coconut sugar is dried nectar. It's dehydrated nectar from the flower. And so if you get coconut sugar, you don't get the flour.
Mm,
And therefore you don't get coconuts.
okay.
So such an important part of the Caribbean culture, Caribbean cuisine, that it makes no sense to anybody here to make coconut sugar because then you don't get coconut. There's tons of sugar.
Hmm.
Why would you not get coconut?
Yeah.
So we don't use coconut sugar. Palm sugar, I don't think we have access to it here either. We sometimes use, and what I've seen it become more popular now, is using the sugar of the fruit of the cacao, which is amazing.
Oh.
It's but it's quite citrusy. So it's not a flavor that everybody enjoys,
Mm.
but it is going to become more popular as people are wanting more sugar alternatives. The other thing is, it's an education. It's teaching ourselves to go into the darker side.
Yeah. And, for those who listened to a recent episode, one of my earlier episodes with Tom Maloshin on the Master Cleanse, because we were having a whole conversation about sugar. And I was telling him that coming from sugarcane farmland growing region, I was staying clear of cane sugar because I didn't like how it made me feel. And then so we were talking about the difference between white sugar, brown sugar, which is just white sugar with molasses added to it, versus having actual raw sugar, which is, actually good for you. And so he actually changed even me coming from that region and just having a salty, I'm very salty about sugar, which is quite funny. And so to hear that you're using raw cane sugar makes me feel really good about that, knowing that that is a good quality sugar and you're still getting the
Yeah.
medicinal benefits of the cacao.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of our chocolate is 75% and higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we definitely, the way that fresh cacao is one of the best antioxidants that we can eat. And antioxidants are destroyed through heating. And so for me, it's really important that I do small batch fermentation that doesn't get too hot. And then I don't roast my cacao. And so I'm really going for as high a level as antioxidants as I can. And then with the raw sugar too, it has a much higher antioxidant content than regular sugar. You were saying earlier about using chocolate when you were studying.
Mm-hmm.
And chocolate is wonderful for our brain. It's a great neuroprotective food
Mm-hmm.
with plenty of brain healthy chemicals in it. It also has a chemical that increases our curiosity. So it's wonderful for projects or deadlines or interviews or first dates or anything where we need a little bit more interest in the other.
I love that. First date. So people, if you're going on a date soon, maybe go to have a chocolate making
Yeah,
date.
absolutely.
That would be so much fun.
Absolutely. In my class, I talk a lot about the medicinal benefits of chocolate, and I also talk about contraindications because she is a medicine. So if you're on if you're taking medications to lower blood pressure, cacao will do the same, and so you have to check. You have to be a little careful. If you're newly pregnant, she's a uterine relaxant. In fact, here in this area with the indigenous people here, the Bribri, they use cacao to initiate the birth, to start the birth. And so she can relaxes the uterus, which makes her so wonderful for period pain too. She's great as she relaxes. She's antispasmodic, so she relaxes cramps. If you are on first generation antidepressants, the MAO inhibitors, cacao has the same. And so she can interfere a little bit with the MAO inhibitors or first generation antidepressants. And if you're online dating, you should not do cacao.
So what happens when you
Well, one of the things that she does is she lowers fear, which makes her an anti-anxiety medication or medicine. So she lowers fear, but she increases curiosity, and that's dangerous swiping. We don't want to do that.
Okay, so don't drink cacao and swipe on Tinder. That's what.
Yes, no, absolutely not.
Don't do that. Maybe that's how my husband courted me because I was, eating a lot of chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah, she's been used as an aphrodisiac for hundreds of years.
Yeah, because I think actually one of the things, I always do my extra research. I have a great love of cacao, as I already mentioned, but I was reading something about it being like a love drug.
She stimulates the cardiovascular.
Mm-hmm.
She gives energy. She opens the heart. And she relaxes soft muscle and soft tissue. And so she works for every aspect of the spectrum.
Wow.
In terms of romance and juice.
Because people always talk about, having chocolate and just feeling so much better. And so it's more than scientifically proven, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, chocolate's a $10 billion a year industry. There is so much research on cacao that's pretty easily available online. And there's a lot of books. But yeah, she's an amazing medicine. You don't get to survive for 10 million years without having a toolbox.
Right. And like some of the other benefits I was looking at, that it supports gut health as well. And sleep quality. Is that for sleep? Would you have some like a hot cacao drink before bed? What would be the best way to do that?
That's a great question. She has caffeine.
Yeah, that's what
She
that's
absolutely has
actually that was
caffeine.
something else I was reading, but the caffeine isn't the same as coffee, right?
Well, no, she has yeah, she does. She has caffeine. She has more caffeine than an espresso, but less than a drip.
Mm-hmm.
And she has theophylline, which is the bitter in black tea, but also the stimulant in black tea. And she has theobromine, which is her main bitter. The theobromine is 1.2% of the weight of each bean. So it's a lot of theobromine in here.
Okay.
And theobromine is exactly the same as caffeine, but it's bigger, so it can't get into our brains. But chocolate will have the same effect on our bodies that coffee does.
Okay.
So it depends how sensitive you are to caffeine. You know, I have friends who can drink it right up. It's the last thing they do before they brush their teeth and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have other friends that can't drink chocolate after midday. So it really depends on your sensitivity.
Yeah.
The very best time to eat chocolate, though, is before a meal.
Oh.
About half an hour. It takes about half an hour for us to really absorb all of the qualities. And so those bitter qualities in her really support our digestive system. They stimulate our salivation all the way through to enabling our supporting digestive enzymes,
Mm-hmm.
and also supporting bile production. And so if we take cacao about half an hour before, then we're able to get more nutrition from our food.
Wow.
And so, yeah, chocolate before, dessert before dinner, for
Before dinner.
sure.
That was a concept of a restaurant I always wanted to start when I lived in Australia, was teaching people like, it was actually going to be dessert as dinner. Because I would make these amazing, healthy, raw, vegan cheesecakes full of nuts or cacao or blueberry, like a blueberry cheesecake, and trying to teach people that these raw cheesecakes I would make, and I still do make them. My husband actually requested a new chocolate hazelnut one last night after he finished that batch. But it's actually healthier than what most people eat for dinner.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I'm like, why just, there's been nights where I don't feel like cooking, but I'm not also really that hungry, but I just wanted something. And so I'll just pull out a raw piece of cheesecake out of the fridge. And that's dinner.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I'll send you my recipes. We'll have to do a recipe exchange. But some other benefits of cacao I wanted to talk to people about. Well, one, I don't think, did we touch on boosting the immune system? I don't think we've got to that one yet. So if someone's, you're feeling run down, cold or flu, that's a good time to be eating. Is there more benefits eating or drinking? Is it the
Drinking.
same? Drinking.
Drinking, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the benefits of the cacao are water soluble, and so it just helps our body absorb her better. Traditionally, people would always, in Mesoamerica, people would always take her with starch, usually corn, because corn was the main starch in Mesoamerica. The starch is really interesting because the starch completes the amino acids in the cacao and makes her a whole food. And so a little bit of, and it can be any starch. It could be oat milk or rice milk. It could be the water that you cook your pasta in. It could be the water that you boil your potatoes in, especially if you leave the skin on the potatoes. Makes great water for chocolate. So takes a little bit of extra time, but chocolate was always taken as a drink. She is dehydrating, and so the water balances out that dehydration.
Okay.
And yeah, there was something you mentioned, something about neuroprotective. There was a study done, actually not on cacao, on another plant, on brain plaque. So during the day, our brains build up plaque, and at night when we're sleeping, the plaque is removed by our own chemistry. And so they were studying to help remove this brain plaque, and then they realized that the same chemicals that were beneficial are also present in cacao. So they did a sister study, and cacao removes brain plaque. So and that brain plaque has been associated with dementia and Alzheimer's. And so she's really super neuroprotective. One, because of that. And two, because cacao opens our lungs. After chocolate, we have about 30% more oxygen in our blood. And so she's taking that beautiful oxygen-rich blood to our brains and to our organs and our skin. So we're getting a lot more oomph mentally from taking cacao. If you add functional mushrooms to that chocolate, then, amazing what you can do.
I love it. And then also enhances performance. So is that because of the caffeine?
Well, partly. Cow is energetically, she's a community species. She loves company. She
Okay.
loves other things growing on her. She loves being in the shade below other trees. She loves being a nursery tree for baby trees. She loves
Oh.
community. And so there's something in when we take on the cacao, there's something in our bodies that or our beings that opens up to community.
Hmm.
Chocolate is in squares because we're supposed to share. Coffee is a shade plant, but coffee puts out a chemical in its roots that kills everything around it except other coffee plants.
Oh.
And so we might have that as well, that cup of coffee in the morning, you don't want anyone in your space, maybe.
Hmm.
And so the enhancing the performance is part physical. She's delivering more oxygenated blood. But she's also increasing curiosity. She releases serotonin and dopamine, or supports our serotonin and dopamine, and nandamine, which is the bliss chemical. But also there's this kind of, I want to be in community. I want to be doing something. I want to be interacting. So she gives us a sort of social energy as well. Cacao was really, really important before as a way to communicate with the natural world, with the gods, with your relatives, with your friends. And so there's something in cacao that really brings us into relationship. And I think that feeds us, that feeds that energy level too.
Yeah. I love how you're talking about cacao. This is why I wanted to get you on this show, Ansel, because I just remembered like your beautiful energy of talking about cacao and her beautiful energy and her community. And so I guess, is that when cacao was then used in medicinal ceremonies because of that
Yeah.
community?
Yeah, really. Sorry, I'm fostering 2 pups right now, and I've never met a dog that loves chocolate more. And so they were trying to steal my beans and my cup.
Like sharing, we're talking about community, and you need to share this right now with me. No asking.
Yeah, that's right. No, I'm just going to reach my head like this to try and get up on the table. Yeah, they are cute, the little cacao dogs. Yeah, she was. Cacao ceremonies are a relatively recent thing. They were created by a man who just died actually this year, a man from the US, a psychologist called Keith, who kind of separated cacao out. You go to a cacao ceremony, but previously, traditionally, cacao was ceremony. Anything there was something important happening, cacao was there. So cacao was the cement that held the social community together. At a birth, people would give out cacao beans. At a death, people would receive beans. If you were marrying somebody, you would exchange 5 beans for 5 beans. People had something called god pots, where they would put out an offering of 5 beans for each of their, however many, 5 is the number of cacao.
Right.
But they would put out beans to represent each of their systems as offering to the gods, who would then take care of their systems. Another tradition was if the medicine person was coming to your house to work on your health, she would bury cacao beans in your doorway under your threshold as an offering to your house spirits to heal you.
Oh,
And
wow.
so cacao I think it's really hard for modern people to imagine to really understand how important cacao was. She was money for the Aztecs. People got paid in cacao beans. But where cacao grew, she was the cement that held the communities together. She was so important.
I just love that. And I really feel like, that's what you and your husband do on your farm is really carry out those traditions and really bring more people like awareness to them, which is just
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, that's what I'm an educator before
Yeah.
anything else, and I just I have so much love for the trees that I really and I yeah I want to share, and I am lucky that I'm in the position where I can do that.
Yes, and we didn't even mention this at the start, and this is my apologies because you are an educator, a storyteller, a therapist, obviously a chocolate maker, but you do also you do take like chocolate and cacao apprentices who spend 4 weeks there. Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
anybody who's like, I need to now go on a cacao adventure? What's your apprenticeship all about?
We do. It's good. I have to say, I think it's really good.
Up soon myself because I need to come. I need to come spend some time with you then.
So we different people come. Sometimes it's people who want to start a chocolate business.
Mm,
Sometimes it's people who want to hold ceremony. Sometimes it's herbalists. Sometimes it's just people who want to sit with cacao.
mm,
And it's both an esoteric aspect or a more spiritual aspect and a very practical aspect. So we make a load of chocolate. By the time I've got a girl from Lithuania and a girl from Australia right now,
oh,
and they are, yeah, that's right. She's from just under Byron Bay.
okay, yeah, not far from where I used to live.
And I've actually got another Australian coming in July from Brisbane. And
That's
I
fun.
had another Australian in October. There's a lot of Aussies making chocolate these days.
We love our chocolate. Yes, I'm originally from Brisbane, so that is so much fun.
Ah, that's fun. So they come and they sit with the tree and they harvest and they ferment and they make chocolate. We do everything by hand apart from the last step, well, the second last step. And so they're roasting in a wok on the fire and hand milling and winnowing and everything immersed, totally immersed. We make paint, we make watercolors out of the chocolate. We do lotions and sunscreens and deodorants from the cacao butter. We do whatever. We make lots of different teas. We make different chocolate flavors. We do everything. So I feel like I'm a matchmaker between the tree and the person, and
Mm.
whatever that relationship becomes, this is a great space to hold that developing relationship in. The farm is beautiful. We have tons of dogs and cats and chickens. We're close to the beaches. I think it's really good what we do, I have to say.
Yeah. It just sounds absolutely amazing. I will be looking at my calendar when I can come out because the more I talk to you, the more I get that excitement of like, I need to go be there. Like, I feel really drawn to the cacao. Lately, I've been going through a whole food elimination process. And because of that, and because, I'm vegan, so I don't already have dairy. And a lot when I look at the ingredients of milks in the supermarket, like nut milks, they still have like some preservatives and things in there. So I've been having these like allergies and I have been struggling to find milks in the supermarket with all the ingredients that they have that are compatible for me. So recently my husband bought me a new nut milk maker, which has been so much fun. And it's self-cleaning. It's just like this fancy machine. And it takes like the smallest amount of nuts. So one of my favorite things that I've been making a lot of lately is hot chocolate with my cacao. So I put in like just a few macadamia nuts, half a teaspoon of like hemp seed. So it's like a macadamia nut hemp seed milk. I'll do a tablespoon of the cacao powder, and then I do about a tablespoon of maple syrup. Maple syrup is a sweetener that I tend to gravitate a lot towards, and I have so much of it at home. And I'll probably do just a little bit over half a tablespoon. So I usually when I make the chocolate, I try and equal parts match the cacao powder with the maple syrup. And I'll just, mix that up. The macadamia nuts are already salted, so I don't need to add the salt. Unfortunately, vanilla is on my no-go list at the moment, but I put a
Oh
little bit
well.
of that when I make it for my husband. And it's just like our favorite little drink now. I'm like, husband, do you want a hot chocolate this evening? And he's like, yeah. So we've been drinking way more hot chocolate where before I would, make the little 3 ingredient chocolate blocks. And now I'm drinking more of it. So I love that you said like the better way to have it is to actually drink it. So I feel like It really does. I really just feel all the things we mentioned with the health benefits. I feel happier. I feel so much just at peace. It's my comfort. It's my like she really does help me feel better.
Yes, she does. She does. The girls, I have 4 girls on the farm, chocolate apprentices and then other apprentices too for homesteading, and everybody is on a cacao diet or a diet. Yeah, she's a wonderful balancer. I mean, Cacao, I keep calling her a she. She's a grandmother energy. This most of the people who worked with Cacao have a really similar creation story where she was a young girl that was turned into a tree. But most of the sculptures and pictures of Cacao, she's an old lady covered in breasts, and this is a breast. So she's just a big pile of breasts with a head on the top mostly. So abundancy, breasts are important. And so, but she has this really strong relationship with women's health, especially around pregnancy and childbirth and menstruation. And so working with mostly young women, we encounter a lot of issues around menstruation. And the girls start drinking cacao, especially, there's a lot of young women who have endometriosis and cysts, and a lot of young women that don't have their period. And so cacao is really good for balancing out or easing women in and out of their menstruation. And so, especially from ovulation through the onset of bleed, then it's cacao every day. But we sometimes do cacao tea, or sometimes do the nibs as a drink, or sometimes do the full cacao. So it really depends. But there's also antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties in her. And so every now and again, you do want to give yourself a little bit of break, because the antibacterial is working on all the bacteria.
Okay.
And so we'll go back and forth between different preparations so that everything is balanced. But yeah, cacao and what you're saying, putting a little bit in those nut milk sounds fantastic.
Oh,
Just
so
a
good.
little bit is going to give you all of that energy. It sounds great. I'm going to look up those. Finish our call.
Yes. It's like my favorite thing to do. And then my 3-ingredient recipe I should probably share with our audience. It's getting I can't remember the measurements. Maybe I'll have to put them in the show notes. But I think I do like I want to say like 5 tablespoons of cacao, 5 tablespoons of maple syrup, and then maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons of like melted coconut oil. And you just mix that all up. And because I use food grade essential oils, and then I'll make a batch of like 1 drop of peppermint oil or 1 drop. My favorite is rose, rose oil, or you can do lavender or orange, like whatever. And then I'll like do a little bit of like a flavor enhancer. And then like, adding the peppermints obviously helps with the digestive system. So just that little like drop. And it can make such a difference. And now that I've been making my own chocolate, I refuse. And now that I'm vegan, it's not really much of an issue because it's really hard to find vegan chocolate anyway. But even before I went vegan, when I was making my chocolate, I just refused to eat chocolate from the supermarket now. I'm like, this doesn't even taste good anymore. Like now I'm all about give me the pure cacao. Like she is what I need, I want. So now another thing that people would have the privilege of when they come to your particular farm, because you're not the only cacao farm, but your particular farm, is that they get to work and meet with you. But you're actually about to become a really unique practitioner.
Yeah, I'm studying with Gabor Mate, is quite trendy right now. He's on there's a lot of Gabor on YouTube. And he is a doctor from a Hungarian Canadian doctor, now 80 years old. And he has a therapy called compassionate inquiry, which is this very gentle inquiry or curiosity into what's holding us back, or our limiting beliefs, or old stuff that we're carrying around with us. And because I've been working with young women in the cacao for about 12 years now, I've seen that we all deal with a lot of stuff. And so a year ago, I started training so that I would have a framework to work with so I could help a little bit more with the girls when they came. And then that's expanded. We are in a fairly small community here on the Caribbean. And yeah, there's a lot of people come here who need support. And so that's another bow that I'm adding, another string I'm adding to my bow. And the cacao supports it. I think that everything, cacao is brilliant before everything. So, before yoga class, before meditation, before exercising, before conversations, before important, before date nights for sure, during date nights, sometimes after date nights. A little commiseration prize. Yeah. And so I think that she opens us up, and so this is something that I'm adding, which has helped me tremendously. I am a completely different person from I was a year ago. I really am. It's really, really helped in my own self-development. Much calmer, much more reflective, self-reflective. Yeah, it's been great. So now I'm bringing that in as well. And I teach classes. I teach 4 bean to bar chocolate classes a week here on the farm with tourists who have an interest. I'm so grateful that they have an interest in where their food comes from. And so we teach between 1,500 and 2,000 people a year come through the kitchen for chocolate classes. So, chocolate she's my medicine, and she's my teacher, and she's my friend, and she's my source of income. She's she's everything. She's grandmother. Yeah, I have this tattoo on my arm here is a mandala. It's all facets of cacao, from the flower and the bean and the different colored pods and the leaves. And then this is a cacao flower. This is a teaching aid to show how pollination happens.
Wow. What a great way to do the teaching aid. I love that. So that's really good to know. I'm glad you mentioned about the class again that we did mention at the start. But if you don't want to do like a 4 weeks apprenticeship, or you just don't have that much time, that you can still come visit you and still get the class, because that in itself, I did that one virtually and I loved it. So I can only imagine what it would be like to be there in person with you and eating some of the finished product, which I'm super excited to come and do. And so what's the best way for them to connect with you? I do have your Instagram I'm going to post, which is Talamanca Chocolate.
Yeah.
So that's your Instagram. And then you've got the talamancachocolate.online website.
Yes, and we might be Chocolate is Medicine on Instagram. I think we were Chocolate is Medicine, and then we shifted it to Talamanca Chocolate. We're both. Some of our bars say Talamanca Chocolate. That was our original name, and then when I started doing the unroasted, then I started calling us Chocolate is Medicine. So we have a little bit of both. Yeah, that's the best way. We're pretty easy to find on Google. The website. Sometimes I run a 5-week online program for people who want to deepen their relationship with cacao a little bit more. And I work with a friend, a chocolate maker in the States who has our cacao up in the north. She's working out of Pennsylvania. So she's actually coming down in a couple of weeks and she'll take home 3 suitcases full of cacao beans from the farm.
And so can people order from her online?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll put her details in the description as well so people can contact her, because I know I would love to get some of my cacao directly from you. That would be wonderful. I would then know where it came from.
Yeah.
I am
right here.
so grateful for you coming on the show today. It has been an absolute pleasure. I'm definitely going to have you back. I'm definitely going to come down and see you. My husband knows I have a whole bucket list of traveling I want to do. And he definitely knows that coming to see you is high on the list. So thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for our audience?
Eat more chocolate.
Eat more chocolate. I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It has been an absolute pleasure. And to all of our audience, stay well, and eat more chocolate.
Yay!
Thank you for joining us on the show today. If you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode.